She hit him for the first time in 42 years of marriage, right across the cheek, so hard the sound echoed through the kitchen. Not because of him. Not because of money, illness, or betrayal. Because of their son. Because he'd said, enough saving him. Let him figure it out himself. Martha recoiled as if she'd struck herself. Her palm burned, her fingers trembled. John stood motionless, looking at her with that strange silence only people who've endured too much pain can carry. He didn't touch his cheek. Didn't yell. Just exhaled slowly and said, "You don't know what love is, Martha." And that hurt worse than any insult. The house was quiet, too quiet, as it had been lately. No laughter from the next room, no clatter of pots on the stove, no morning coffee aroma. Just the ticking of the grandfather clock in the living room and the rustle of newspaper pages, John reading, though he hadn't truly absorbed the words in weeks. Martha sat by the window, clutching a teacup long gone cold. She stared down the driveway, waiting. Always waiting. Their son had promised to come today. The third time this month. And, as usual, he was late. "He's not coming," John said without looking up from the paper. "He will," Martha replied, though her voice wavered. "You say that every time. Then you sit up till midnight staring out that window like he's the only light left in your world. And to me he is." John finally lifted his eyes. His gaze was heavy, exhausted. "Then you're blind. Because that light is dimming everything else." Martha didn't answer. She knew he was right partly. But a mother doesn't see her child's flaws. Not when he's all she has left of her youth, her hopes, her belief that life still means something. Ben was their only son. Born late, after they'd nearly accepted they'd spend their lives as just the two of them. He grew up smart, handsome, with gentle eyes and a stubborn chin. Excelled in school, played piano, helped neighbors fix cars in their garage. Everyone said, "What a wonderful boy. You're so lucky." And they were until Ben turned 25. That's when the fall began. Not sudden, not dramatic. Slow, almost invisible, like a crack in a home's foundation you don't notice until it's too late. First, he quit a good job because he didn't feel fulfilled. Then he moved back home, citing temporary hardship. After that came debts. Then disappearances, first small things, Grandma's silver spoon, John's wedding gift watch. Then money vanished from their savings account. Then loans taken out in their names. Each time, Ben returned with his head bowed, tears in his eyes, promises on his lips. Never again. "I'll get it together. Just one more chance." And every time, Martha said yes. John said no. "You're destroying him," he'd whisper at night, thinking she was asleep. "You won't let him fall. And without falling, there's no rising." "He's my son," she'd murmur back. "I can't watch him suffer." "You're not letting him become a man." But John's words drowned in the ocean of a mother's grief. Martha couldn't do otherwise. To her, Ben was still that little boy who kissed her cheek before bed and begged for the Princess and Dragon story. She didn't see the man who lied, manipulated, used. She saw only the child who was afraid. The day everything finally collapsed, Ben called again. His voice was hoarse, strained. "Mom, I need 3,000. Today. Or they'll evict me. I've got nothing." Martha was already about to say yes, as always, but John snatched the phone from her hand. "No," he said firmly. "Not another cent." "Dad," Ben's voice cracked. "You know, I'm in trouble. You put yourself there. And you'll get yourself out. You're not a father." Ben shouted. "You're a cold, cruel old man. And you're a grown man hiding behind your mother's skirt," John shot back. "Enough." He hung up. Martha stared at him like he was a stranger. "You had no right," she cried. "He's our son." "Exactly why I had the right to say no. Because I'm his father. Not an ATM." She hit him. Without thinking. As if that slap could erase his words, turn back time, shield Ben from the world, from himself, from the truth. And then came silence, the kind that eats you from the inside. A week passed. Ben didn't call. Didn't text. Didn't show up. Martha dialed him dozens of times, voicemail, disconnected number. She sobbed at night, hiding in the bathroom so John wouldn't hear. He pretended not to notice. Made breakfast, watered the plants, read books. But his eyes had gone hollow. One morning, Martha snapped. "Are you happy?" she demanded, standing at the stove with the kettle in hand. "He's gone. What if something happened to him?" "If something happens," John said calmly, "it won't be the first time. And not because we refused him money, but because he never learned to take responsibility." "You don't understand," she cried. "You never understood what it means to be a mother. And you've never tried to be a father," he countered. "Do you think it doesn't tear me apart? Every time he lies, humiliates us, it cuts my heart out. But I can't save him if he won't let himself be saved. He wants to. He just needs help. Help doesn't mean doing for him what he must do himself." She slammed the kettle on the table. Water splashed across the wood. "You want him to die?" John stood, walked to her, placed his hands on her shoulders. They were warm, as always. "I want him to live. Truly. Not just exist in that swamp of dependence on us. On you." Martha burst into tears, not from anger, but fear. From the terror that maybe, just maybe, John was right. That all these years, she hadn't been saving her son, she'd been holding him underwater. The next day, the doorbell rang. Martha rushed to answer, her heart pounding like it might burst from her chest. Ben stood on the porch. He looked different. Not like a lost boy. Not like a victim. He stood tall. His eyes held fatigue, but not despair. In his hands, a worn backpack. "Hey, Mom," he said softly. She didn't throw her arms around him. Didn't cry. Just looked. And for the first time in years, she saw a man. "Come in," she said. John stepped out of the living room. Stopped in the hallway. Ben met his gaze. Paused. "Hey, Dad." "Hey, son." Nothing more. But in that one word, son, was everything. Pain, hope, and a question. Ben stepped inside. Set his backpack by the door. Sat at the kitchen table. Martha brewed tea hot, like old times. John sat across from him. "I got a job," Ben began. "At an auto shop. Starting from scratch. Going back to school. I've been staying with a friend. Paying back what I owe in installments. Not all at once. But I'm paying." Martha gripped her mug until her knuckles turned white. "Why didn't you call?" "Because I was ashamed. I realized you were both right. Especially you, Dad. I was hiding behind you, Mom. Using your love as a shield. But a shield doesn't build a life. It just hides you from it." John said nothing. Just nodded. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Ben continued. "I want to start over. From zero. No money. No excuses. Just, as your son." Martha stood, walked to him, placed her hand on his hair, so familiar, so dear. "You've always been my son," she whispered. "Even when you made mistakes." "Especially then," John added. Ben looked at his father. Tears glistened in his eyes, not of weakness, but clarity. "I don't know if I'll make it," he said. "But I'll try. For real this time." "We're here," John replied. "Not instead of you. With you." 3 months passed. Ben lived in a small apartment on the edge of town. Worked 6 days a week. Sometimes stopped by, not for money, just to share coffee, fix a leaky faucet, talk. He'd grown quieter. Calmer. More grounded. Martha and John changed too. They walked in the evenings again. Laughed over dinner. Argued about movies and politics. Their marriage, coated in dust from years of resentment and silence, began to breathe once more. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Martha sat on the porch with her tea. John joined her. "You were right," he said. "No," she replied. "You were. I just didn't want to admit it. Love isn't just protection," he said. "It's also faith even when it feels like there's nothing left to believe in. I was afraid that if I let him go, I'd lose him forever. And if you hadn't let go, you'd have lost him another way. He'd have stayed, but inside, he'd already be dead." She took his hand. His fingers were rough, calloused from garden tools, but warm. "Steady. I'm sorry I hit you. I'm sorry I couldn't explain it sooner." They sat in silence, watching the last rays of sun dance on the maple leaves. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. Children laughed in a neighbor's yard. Life moved on. The next day, Ben arrived with a cake. He'd baked it himself, slightly burnt, but made with love. First pancakes, always lumpy, he said, setting it on the table. But it's yours, Martha smiled. At dinner, they spoke little. But they looked at each other often. And in those glances was everything: forgiveness, gratitude, hope. When Ben left, he hugged his father for the first time in years. John froze for a moment, then pulled him close. "I'm proud of you, son," he whispered. Ben nodded, saying nothing. Just got in his car and drove away. Martha stood on the porch, watching him go. "He'll be back," John said, joining her. "Yes," she said. "Now he knows the way home." Months later, Ben met a woman, a kind, quiet librarian. He brought her to meet his parents. Martha baked a pie. John told a couple of old jokes. The woman laughed. Ben looked at her the way he used to look only at his mother, with awe and gratitude. One evening after everyone left, Martha sat at the kitchen table flipping through old photos. There was Ben at 5, grinning with birthday cake on his face. In his graduation suit, proud and bright-eyed. At his aunt's wedding, smiling, but his eyes already clouded. John came over, set a cup of coffee beside her. "Don't dwell on what was," he said. "Think about what will be. What if it all goes wrong again? Then we'll be there. Not to rescue, but to stand beside him." She nodded. Closed the photo album. Took his hand. "Thank you for not letting me drown with him. We're in the same boat, Martha. If one of us sinks, we both do." Now, a year after that slap across the cheek, music fills the house again. Ben sometimes comes to play the old piano. His fingers are sure. The melody is simple, but honest. Martha no longer stares out the window waiting. She lives. John reads the paper, but now with interest. Because the world has grown bright again. They still argue. Still sit in silence sometimes. But there's no wall between them anymore. Only a bridge, built from pain, truth, and a love that finally learned to let go. Because real love isn't holding someone in your hands. It's releasing them and trusting they'll find their way back on their own.